Tony, the 28th of March is an artificious juridical construction of a temporary government. Does not mean anything under the Italian law. The ultimate goal of the action of the government is to discourage people from fighting for their rights. This is the reason why I suggest not to stop, not to be discouraged.
Hi everyone, Tony here with Italian Dual Citizenship Assistance. Now, before we jump into today's interview, I really want to take a minute to talk to you directly. Over the past couple of years, I've watched as this community has gone through an incredible amount of uncertainty. And honestly, I've gone through a lot of it right alongside you. And the truth is, it's very difficult to know who to believe. And I talk to people every day who are quite frustrated, discouraged, and simply trying to understand what's really happening. And that's why I started this channel, and that's really why I wanted to have this conversation that I'm bringing you today. Rather than asking you to rely on rumors or speculation or opinions from people on the internet, I wanted you to hear directly from someone who's been at the center of these cases from the very beginning. And Marco Mellone has argued cases both in front of the Italian Supreme Court as well as the Constitutional Court, giving him a perspective that very few people have. This interview isn't about false hope. It isn't about telling people to give up. It's about understanding the actual facts. How did we get here? What are the courts actually deciding? What's really happening behind the scenes? And where does Marco think all of this may be headed? And one quick note before we begin all of this, we briefly had to pause the interview because developments were literally coming in while we were recording. And that was really just a reminder of how active and fast moving this area continues to be. My hope is that when you finish this interview, you'll leave with something more valuable than just another opinion. You'll leave with a better understanding of what's actually happening in all of this. And just another quick note before we get started, there were a couple of technical issues with Zoom. The interview is going to be fantastic, but I just wanted to acknowledge that we know there were a couple of issues. There's a couple of moments where the video freezes and gets a little bit out of sync. But I think you're going to get a lot out of this, so I encourage you strongly to stick around to the end. Thank you.
Today, I'm very excited to be joined once again by a very special guest, attorney Marco Mellone. For the past couple of years, Marco has stood at the forefront of all of the legal challenges to Italy's changes in citizenship by descent as counsel in cases before the Italian Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court challenges. He has helped shape many of the legal arguments that are at the heart of this litigation and has had a front row seat to one of the most consequential legal battles affecting Italians abroad in decades. Ciao Marco, benvenuto, grazie mille per essere tornato qui oggi.
Buongiorno a te, Tony, buongiorno a tutti gli amici del tuo canale. Good morning to you and to all the friends of your channel.
Grazie. Now, over the past nearly 2 years, millions of people around the world have followed the headlines, the court hearings, government decrees, legal opinions, and endless speculation. And beneath all of that lies a much bigger question. How does a democratic nation balance its authority to shape citizenship policy with its constitutional principles and the expectations of people who have long understood themselves to be Italian citizens? That's a big part of the conversation I'd like to have today, not another legal update. I want to understand what really happened, what's happening, why it happened, and what the courts are actually deciding and what all of it means and where we may be headed next. So Marco, before we talk about the law, I'd like people to understand a little bit more about you. How did you first become involved in Italian citizenship law?
Well, Tony, I have been working in this field of law for more than 15 years. I started working with the descendants of Italian immigrants to America, South America, and to all the countries of the world, because the Italian immigration took place all around the world. Italian immigrants immigrated all around the world. So I started working a long time ago in this field of law, and I immediately understood the importance to protect the right to the Italian citizenship by descent for these people. Why? Because actually very few people at that time knew that they were entitled to obtain the recognition of Italian citizenship by descent. Many descendants thought that actually they were not entitled. They didn't know the chance for them to actually obtain the recognition of this right. Moreover, many people knew that yes, they had Italian descendants, but they could not, they were prevented from obtaining the recognition of Italian citizenship for different reasons. For instance, for being descendants of a female Italian ancestors. So I immediately understood that in this field there was a lack of information and a lack of protection of rights. So I immediately start working on that subject, and of course it has been a hard study, because Italian citizenship law, it's not just a law to study, it's not just the text of the law to study, it's much more. It's studying history, it's studying history of Italian citizenship law, it's studying society, it's studying case law. So it's a quite complicated subject, but at the same time, it's also a very fascinating field of law.
Why has this fight become so important to you personally?
Tony, I think that each of us, lawyers, we have a sort of mission. We have studied law to protect rights of people. And when you have a mission and you see that a right is not under protection or is object of violation by the state, then of course it's something that you spontaneously do to go deeply in the study of the law and in the protection of rights of people. So these are the kinds of battles I like the most, when you go against the state, against the Italian administration, because you can have battles between private people, okay, Tony against Marco, or you can have battles Marco against the state, which is of course another kind of battle, because the state is, generally speaking, much more powerful than private people. But at the same time, in Italy, as in US, we have rules, we have a state of law, and then of course lawyers shall absolutely use the rules to protect rights of people.
Why do you think Italians who have perhaps no connection to the idea of Italian citizenship by descent should care how these cases are decided?
Tony, I remember that one of the referrals of last year of the Court of Bologna, when it was questioning the legitimacy of the former Italian citizenship law, in that referral, the judge said, look, we have a problem. Unfortunately, internet made that today people are aware of this right, the right to Italian citizenship by descent. And this caused the problem that today we have so many people looking for the recognition of this right. This was more or less stated in that referral from the Court of Bologna. I mean, uh, I think that internet, the spread of news, the spread of disinformation, not only is not a problem, but is also something very democratic because many descendants not only knew that they had Italian descendants, but they have been always connected to Italy in different manners. So they just didn't know that they could also obtain the formal recognition of something that they had actually at birth according to the Italian citizenship law. So I think that the spread of news, of information about this right was a very democratic thing. It's not an issue, it's not a problem, it's a democratic thing. And the Italian state has the responsibility that was not capable to preview this, what's happening today. I mean, the fact that many people are finally aware of a right that they had, and they are rightfully seeking for its recognition.
What problem do you think the government genuinely believed that it was trying to accomplish?
I mean, I think that the government simply did not take it in the right manner. They simply thought that it was a problem, but it's not a problem to have so many Italian people living abroad. It's an added value. It's not a problem. Moreover, don't forget, Tony, that an Italian citizen living abroad is not a weight for the Italian state. Actually, an Italian citizen living abroad does not cost almost anything to the Italian state because, of course, they do not have access to the Italian social security system. They do not have access to the Italian system of retirement and so on. So basically, an Italian citizen living abroad just gives to Italy, not receiving almost anything. And no other European country has this added value. I mean, to have so many citizens living abroad and, of course, promoting the Italian system, buying Italian things, going to Italy for vacation, and giving a lot of money to the Italian system. I mean, it is calculated that each year the world, the other Italy, let's say, the Italy outside Italy, gives to the Italian system a lot, of course, of money, which is fundamental for our economy. So I mean, it was just the government just had to tackle this matter in the right way. So to promote, to support this added value that we have outside Italy, and at the same time to strengthen the connection, the link between this other Italy outside Italy and our country. So these two things can go together, Tony. The one does not exclude the other. And there is there lies the politics. There lies how a good politician must act.
Well, why do you think that the Italian government chose this approach? Why? I mean, obviously you think that there was a better solution, and we can get into what you think the solution should have been. Had they come and asked Marco Mellone, how would you handle this problem? Obviously, you would have done it different. So why do you think they chose to do it this way, and how would you do it differently?
Tony, the answer is very simple, is ignorance. Ignorance. Ignorance of Italian citizenship law, ignorance of the added value of Italian citizens living abroad, because when you don't know something, then you take the wrong decision. It's very simple. And this not only for the government, but also for the parliament, because of course the parliament confirmed the decree law number 36. Generally speaking, here in Italy, we have this problem, which is the ignorance of the reality of Italian citizens living abroad. Don't forget that also the Italian constitutional court in the ruling number 63 calls the Italian citizens living abroad, calls them as foreigners, calls them as people actually having no genuine link with Italy. Now, please tell me, Tony, which is the difference between a baby who was born in Lugano or a baby who was born in Varese? There are just 20 kilometers between the two cities, and in the middle, the frontier between Italy and Switzerland. We have also two states inside our territory, San Marino and Città del Vaticano. So, I mean, there are also people who actually are born in our peninsula, but they are born outside Italy. So, I mean, this is a so superficial approach that demonstrates that actually there is a lot of ignorance of this subject. Of course,
that's fascinating to hear that broken down like that. It really is. How would you do things differently if they came to you to solve the problem that it was perceived that there's some problem with having all of these Italian immigrants? I mean, it sounds like you don't think there's a problem there to begin with, but if you were trying to solve this problem, how would you have structured things in the law to handle it better, more appropriately, more in line with the law and the constitution in Italy?
Antonio, you have to create a system of promotion of the Italianity outside Italy, okay? So you have to promote system of spread of Italian language, of Italian culture. You have also to give to descendants of Italian immigrants living abroad a sort of targets to achieve in the future to demonstrate the current link with Italy. In this manner, you promote the spread of Italian culture and Italian values, and at the same time, you keep these citizens inside your community because you need them, because they give to you. They give to you a lot of money, and they do not take from you almost anything. So, I mean, solutions even under our constitution are, there are, it's just a matter, of course, to take the right decision. Then, of course, I don't want to give so many details because, of course, this is not my work. But if I was in the government, I would have taken a completely different approach, including to, make that all the Italian citizens living abroad could somehow represent a sort of soft power of Italy outside Italy, because also in US there are a lot of communities, important and huge communities of Italian descendants, and they can somehow also influence the local politics. So, once again, just added value from having so many ambassadors of Italy outside the Italian territory.
Some people have been really upset. I'm sure you've talked to them. I'm sure you've seen comments online. Some people have felt, personally affronted by Italy's law change, that it was somehow personal for them. I know I've seen it strongly in the Italian American community. What would you want to say to people that feel that Italy has made it clear that they don't want us, that the Italian government's making this set of laws the way that they've done this, is saying that we don't want you, that we don't value you? What would you want to say to people that are feeling that way, that it's landing that way with them?
I would like to say that this is not, we do not want you, or they do not want you. It's they do not know who are you. This is the difference. So unfortunately, once again, here in Italy, we have an issue, which is the ignorance of the figure of the Italian citizen living abroad. Many people here think that descendants of Italian immigrants have a sort of privilege to be Italian citizens despite they do not pay taxes here in Italy, they do not live here in Italy, they do not contribute to the Italian system. But they simply do not know what I told you before. So that Italian citizens living abroad, even descendants of third, fourth generation, they indirectly contribute to the Italian system, to the Italian economy, and they are not a weight for the Italian state. Moreover, if they are supported somehow, they would even try to be integrated the more possible to the Italian community, because I'm pretty sure, Tony, that if, for instance, the Italian government makes a politics to promote the spread of Italian language, for instance, in US or in South America, a lot of people will be encouraged to speak Italian, to learn Italian, especially today that through internet, it's much easier, to take classes of Italian language, and they would have been encouraged to learn Italian. And so solutions are on the table. It's just a matter to take the right ones. What the government did is just to cut in horizontal way the right, and moreover in a retroactive way. And this, trust me, will be not accepted at the end of the day, because as for the moment, as you know, we have a battle, an ongoing battle, which maybe will take time, but at the end of the day, it's not possible under our principles of law, under our constitution, under our tradition, that measure, that decision of the government is accepted at the end of the day.
So it sounds like you're confident that history will be on our side.
Tony, it's like when you say to a doctor, please give to your patient the aspirin instead of an antibiotic. So it's the ABC for a lawyer, that a law cannot touch some positions which have been already definite in the past. And it's the ABC of a lawyer that law must somehow give time to people to react, to match with the new conditions. You cannot put the new conditions in the past. You must put the new conditions in the future. You cannot tell now that you were supposed to be born in Italy. I can tell this to my future parents of my future life, but now I am here, so I cannot decide anymore my place of birth, just to give you an example. I mean, this is something that does not make any kind of sense for a jurist.
And you've said in the past that you don't think that the March 28th, 2025 deadline is going to hold up in the end, that this date is no longer going to be significant in the future.
Tony, the 28th of March is an artificious juridical construction of a temporary government. Does not mean anything under the Italian law, because you cannot decide, you government or even you parliament, you cannot decide a date starting from which an already recognized citizen is not anymore the title, that right. So you can just say to an already recognized citizen that if he or she does not do something in the future, he or she can lose that title, that right. This is the only thing that the government / the parliament could have made in this case. But the government had no right to say, look, you were supposed to do something in the past before the entry into force of the new rules. This does not make any logic sense, and it's a very dangerous precedent. Very dangerous precedent. This is the reason why I still hope that the Italian Constitutional Court can reflect more on the decision they are going to take, because if they are going to confirm the legitimacy of that approach, it will be a devastating precedent for our law.
Indeed, it would be. Can you explain why every Italian should be concerned about this decision to essentially tell a certain segment of the population that you're no longer considered Italian? Why is that dangerous for all Italians?
Tony, I mean, if the Italian Constitutional Court confirms that kind of decision, then any government, including this one, in the future may revoke a right which was previously conferred upon by the former law to a citizen, saying that somehow this is possible under the Italian Constitution, mentioning exactly the decisions, the rulings of the Italian Constitutional Court on Italian citizenship by descent. So if I was in a prime minister tomorrow, for sure I will maybe solve some problems created by the former government, revoking the right conferred upon by the law, by the former law, mentioning this decision of the Italian Constitutional Court. And I do not want to live in a state in which my prime minister may at any time revoke a right which was already attributed, conferred upon by the law. Because if the law tells you, Tony, you have that right, then you rely upon it. You act according to it. And you cannot be somehow then receive the bad surprise that the parliament was joking. So this is very important in a democracy like ours. And I'm pretty confident that the Italian Constitutional Court may take into account this broader picture. I mean, the effects, the consequences, not only in Italian citizenship law by descent, in the field of Italian citizenship law by descent, but in general terms, will be a devastating precedent.
Well, powerfully said, Marco, definitely. So now that we're clear on what this fight is about and why it's so important, let's look a little bit more closely at the actual fight itself, at what's happening in the courts, what the courts are really deciding. Now, many people right now, at this particular point in time, this is July 7th that this is being recorded, we still have pending decisions from the two highest courts in Italy. We have the Italian Supreme Court, the Corte di Cassazione, still yet to decide from the April 14th hearing where you and I spoke outside the courthouse and you voiced, what you felt had happened inside and your confidence about what was going to happen with their decision. And we still have yet to hear from the Constitutional Court from their June 9th hearing, which again, you were also present for, and you were one of the attorneys arguing in that case as well. Help us understand, many people feel these two courts are telling two different stories right now. Help us understand what's going on. Are they moving in two directions, or are they answering fundamentally different legal questions?
Tony, what I know is that, of course, both courts are taking time now to study the matter, and this is good. This is very good. Don't forget that the Italian Constitutional Court took the decision, took the ruling, adopted the ruling number 63 the day after the hearing of the 11th of March. Now we are more than 40 days from the 9th of June already have passed. So actually, I suppose that the Italian Constitutional Court is taking its time to reflect exactly as I suggested to them to do on the 9th of June. So take your time, reflect on the effects of this decision. At the same time, also the United Sections of the Supreme Court are taking their time before adopting the decision. I'm waiting in a very with a lot of confidence both decisions because I cannot imagine that what has been stated in 160 years of history of Italian citizenship law may now change. This would be very, dramatic for not only for Italian citizenship law, but in general terms. I mean, it's a matter of reliability of citizens on the highest Italian courts. Because if the United Sections of the Supreme Court tells me you have a right from your birth, and that right is not going to expire in the time, of course, I rely on these words. I do not go to the consulate the day after. I do not make any rush because I know that the highest court in my country told me that I have time. So, that it does not make any sense that today the same court tells me, look, no, I was wrong. You hadn't time. You were supposed to do that before that deadline. So it's a matter of reliability of the Supreme Court, reliability of the Italian Constitutional Court, because citizens look at that, and citizens must rely on these highest Italian courts.
Currently, we're in a situation where it seems like the two high courts are pulling in different directions. We've got the Supreme Court, the Corte di Cassazione, that has said in its ruling in May, it reaffirmed this principle that you've mentioned here, that they've been saying for many, many years, that Italian citizenship is by descent is a right that's acquired from birth, that it's an imprescriptible right, that it can't be changed by some act later on. If they're upholding that principle, basically the Supreme Court has described this all along as something that's acquired at birth, but we have the Constitutional Court essentially saying, yeah, but there's a bunch, these people didn't really acquire it at birth for X, Y, and Z reasons. Are those ideas actually incompatible? How do you see this getting resolved between the two high courts? And which of the court's decisions really matters the most at the end of the day to those people out there watching who are blocked, at least administratively, by the current law?
Well, Tony, let's clarify the situation. The United Sections of the Supreme Court, of the Corte di Cassazione, in general, the Corte di Cassazione is not taking, at least until now, any different direction. The Corte di Cassazione has always stated the following: the descendant of an Italian parent has the right to Italian citizenship from the birth, and that right is not subject to any deadline. This was clear, and until now, the Corte di Cassazione has never changed its position. Moreover, also in May, it issued another decision confirming these principles. What was the surprise was the decision coming from the Italian Constitutional Court, ruling 63/2026, that for the first time in the history of Italian citizenship law by descent, said a different thing, said that the descendant of an Italian parent actually is not automatically an Italian citizen at birth, but just starting from the moment in which the Italian authority, administrative authority, recognizes this right. This is a completely new juridical figure. This is a completely new rule, never approved by any parliament here in Italy. And this is something that is against the Italian law and something which is against the case law of the Italian Supreme Court. And the only institution here in Italy deputed, charged with the responsibility to say what the law establishes in the specific case is the Corte di Cassazione, is the Supreme Court. So here we have an issue with the Italian Constitutional Court. And we will see now if the Corte di Cassazione, the United Sections, somehow will react against this completely new juridical figure. I expect that the Corte di Cassazione will confirm once again that this right is from the birth and not from the activity of the Italian administrative authority. And this would be already sufficient, actually, to make that the Decreto Tajani is not applicable to all already born citizens, descendants.
So the Italian Supreme Court, the Corte di Cassazione, saying citizenship is acquired at birth, is in direct conflict with the Constitutional Court's statement that it's not, that it's acquired at some act later in life at the point of recognition of that Italian citizenship. How does that get rectified, that big rift between very strongly opposing viewpoints between the two highest courts in Italy? And has something like this ever happened before? And what if this has happened before. How was it resolved? And does that give us any clues to how things may be resolved or what solution may come out of this particular situation?
Well, Tony, it's interesting. I mean, there is an interesting interview of the current president of Italian Constitutional Court on the website of the Italian Constitutional Court, okay, published on the website of Italian Constitutional Court, an interview that the current president of the Italian Constitutional Court makes to a former president of the Italian Constitutional Court. And he he talks and he asks about the so-called phenomenon of the battle between the courts. The battle between the courts is the battle between Italian Constitutional Court and Italian Supreme Court. This because it already happened in the past that the Italian Constitutional Court took a sort of different direction, a direction other than the one taken by the Corte di Cassazione. And at the end of the day, of course, the interpretation of the Corte di Cassazione of the Supreme Court somehow prevailed because it's the only institution charged to interpret the Italian law under our constitution. But it happened in the past, and the current president of the Italian Constitutional Court talks about this phenomenon, the battle between the courts, in a very recent interview that you can find on internet, on YouTube. But I mean, this is not interesting for us because we citizens, we would like that. I mean, each institution makes its work. If the parliament said white, if the Corte di Cassazione Supreme Court said white, also the Italian Constitutional Court must say white. It does not make any sense that they change the interpretation. Otherwise, once again, how a citizen can rely on our juridical system and our judicial system, this is the real value at stake in this matter, because citizens must rely on the Italian Constitutional Court, must rely on the Supreme Court. So I hope that finally, I mean, there will be a fair and correct interpretation of the Italian citizenship law.
But really quickly, I want to talk about, now that we've talked about where we are today by looking at the high courts and what they're deciding and what may happen, let's look at what happens next. In a recent interview, you described what you called a classic Italian solution. Walk us through what that really means.
I mean, somehow, you know, it is possible also that there isn't any frontal fight or frontal decision taken by one court against another one. Sometimes, I mean, it is possible to take a sort of intermediate solution so as, I mean, there isn't any impression that there is a sort of in front decision immediately against another institution, because at the state, for sure, we have two different approaches, one from the Corte di Cassazione and another from the Italian Constitutional Court. So, for instance, it could be possible, and I also gave this possible way to the Corte di Cassazione on the 14th of April and you were there, Tony, so you are witness of what I'm telling. Now, I also gave the Supreme Court the possible solution to refer the matter of the scope of the Tajani Decree to the European Court of Justice to obtain a sort of opinion on the validity and on the scope of the Tajani Decree, even under the European rules, because we know that the Tajani Decree is also inconsistent with the European Union rules. So it could be a sort of possible, let's say, third solution not to challenge directly the interpretation, the new interpretation of the Italian Constitutional Court, but to obtain a third opinion or a third ground for which that the Tajani Decree is not applicable or is not valid for already born citizens. So this could be a sort of a possible, let's say, Italian solution, because, you know, when I say Italian solution, I refer to an approach which is quite common in our tradition. I mean, to take a sort of not frontal decision, not impacting direct decision, but sort of indirect solution and indirect decision. It is possible also that not in front decision could be taken, but for instance, that one of the two courts refer the matter to the European Court of Justice, to a third court, in order to obtain a sort of opinion also on the validity of the consistency of the Decreto Tajani with the European Union law, because we know that there are many reasons for which the Tajani Decree is also inconsistent with the European Union law. So it could be a sort of third solution, not in front decision, not direct decision, not direct solution, but passing through other institutions, other courts.
If the Supreme Court rules the way that you hope and that you're confident that they will, does that immediately change everything that happens at the consulates or comune, or is there still likely to be resistance, roadblocks, and obstacles that are thrown up by the consulates? And as a result, is the legal challenge, the court-based route, the more likely route that people are going to find to be the quicker, safer, faster, more reasonable approach?
Well, the decisions of the United Sections of the Supreme Court are not binding over the Italian administration. So it is absolutely possible that the Italian administration does not change its approach even before a decision of the United Sections which says that reborn citizens. But those decisions of the Supreme Court, yes, are binding over the national judges. Courts of Italy are supposed to follow the principle established by the United Sections of the Supreme Court. So in other words, if the Supreme Court rules in our favor, then descendants will be entitled but to obtain the recognition of Italian citizenship, but just through a judicial process here in Italy.
There's a growing litigation involving people who can demonstrate genuine efforts to pursue their recognition before the March 2025 deadline. That seems to be a rapidly growing place of litigation right now. What does a persuasive showing of prior effort actually look like? Is there one particularly strong piece of evidence, or is it the overall pattern of someone's actions
Tony, my personal idea is that this matter of the 28th of March, the matter of the evidences to show that people were started somehow the process even before March 2025. I mean, all that is something that can be useful today in this current situation, with this current panorama. But I am pretty confident that in the future, there will be no any more need to demonstrate if someone started somehow or booked an appointment before 28th of March or after. Because as I told you before, this is something artificious. This is something which, I mean, does not make any sense under our Italian citizenship law. In any case, some courts accept the attempts to book an appointment with the consulate. Some other courts requires the application itself. So not only just the attempt to book an appointment, but the application, the filing of the application. I mean, this is, I mean, according to my opinion, it's another example of the absurd situation from a juridical point of view, because, I mean, descendants must not be obliged to demonstrate if they filed an application, if they tried to file an application, to book an appointment and so on. Descendants must be put in the position to make that their status of Italian citizens just depend on their will. So if you give a deadline in the future, then the citizenship depends on the will of a citizen. If you put a deadline in the past, there is no will, okay? Because of course you couldn't know what could happen in the future. So today, yes, it could be useful, important, helpful for people to collect evidences of what happened before March 2025, and any kind of evidence could be useful, even contracting lawyers, contracting agencies, contracting, I mean, some service providers for the Italian citizenship and so on. Because somehow what you have to demonstrate is the fact that you weren't, I mean, doing anything, okay? So you were somehow in an active position. But I bet that this is something that maybe in 6 months, in 1 month, I mean, in the future, we are not going to talk anymore about that.
Got it. So this is something that is a right now possibility that we're seeing some people succeeding in courts, but it may not be something that we see moving on into the future, because you believe that this March 28th deadline is eventually going to be seen as fictitious and not factor into it anymore. So for the people that are looking at filing a challenge right now, what are some of the things that are really mattering? And well, you mentioned some things. So you believe that there are options for people, even for those that don't have screenshots of failed attempts on the Prenotami system?
I would suggest to act as the Decree Tajani does not exist. So to keep on trying to book appointment, to keep on collecting documents, because, Tony, we cannot exclude in the possible future scenarios that there will be a sort of new deadline. So the 28th of March will be deleted, and it will be approved a sort of new deadline, approved by the parliament or by the government, or somehow established also by the case law. So if in this period people, descendants, demonstrate that they try to book an appointment, they try to somehow to file the application to do what they have to, including filing the claims with the courts, then their position could be the position could be could be stronger if a possible new deadline is established. Because as I told you before, the situation is fluid. Nothing prevents, for instance, the Italian government from approving a new decree, a new law, saying, look, okay, the 28th of March was retroactive. You didn't know, but now you know. So I put now a new deadline, which is valid, which is correct. Okay, so the situation is fluid. This is the reason why I suggest not to stop, not to be disencouraged, because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal of the action of the government is to disencourage people from fighting for their rights. It's exactly to make people stop.
So your advice is don't give up, don't stop, keep fighting, keep moving forward. There may be some world in which there's a future deadline that your actions today could be judged against, just like for many people it's being judged against this arbitrary March 28th deadline. So that's a really powerful statement. I haven't heard anyone say it quite like that. So I just want to really reiterate what you said for the audience, that idea that, keep moving forward as though the Tajani Decree, as though Law 74 doesn't exist. Keep taking action. And we have no idea. It's a fluid situation. We have no idea how it may play out. And there may be a world in which the March 28th deadline and all of this is completely forgotten about, that trying to get an appointment with the consulate, filing a court case, all of that could be valuable. There could be some future deadline that your actions today are judged against. So lots of reasons to keep moving forward. Am I hearing you correctly in all of that?
Exactly, Tony, exactly. So, I mean, there are several possible scenarios, including scenario in which there will be a sort of new deadline. Of course, I mean, in the future. So, I mean, not a deadline which is before March 2025. I mean, could be July 2026. We do not know. But the time between March 2025 and now could be relevant. Could be relevant to demonstrate that people did not stop.
Marco, in the future, in many years from now, how do you think all of this will be viewed by history? What do you think history will say that all of us misunderstood while all of this was going on? Let's flash forward 10 years from now.
I think that this will be considered a bad page of our law, a bad page of our case law, because actually we are talking about basic principles of our laws, and judgments as judgment number 63 of 2026 of Italian Constitutional Court are absolutely unique precedents in our system. So we are talking about a big issue which is much broader than just right to Italian citizenship by descent. So I hope that this situation could be somehow fixed in the right way, because otherwise in 10 years we will be talking about a very bad page of our juridical system.
Powerful words again. So parting thoughts, just want to go back to the biggest thing. We talked about it a bit, but I want to reiterate, what can we all be doing to do our part to challenge this law, to move forward, to leave this bad page of history behind? What's the best thing that any of us out there can do, especially those who are blocked by the current laws, at least administratively?
I mean, when I will say to keep fighting, I mean, if people keep on fighting for their rights, filing claims with the courts, making application and so on, I mean, the state will see that these measures did not achieve their goal because people do not give up. And this is the most important thing that the descendants entitled to Italian citizenship by descent may do. Because as I told you before, the ultimate goal of the government was to discourage people from fighting for their rights. But if the government sees that their problem was not solved, because people keep on filing claims against that decree, then the government will be somehow obliged to adopt different solutions.
And while we were on this interview today, you got notice that some of the United Sections decisions had come out, and you thought maybe even the big decision in the minor issue case may have come out. It didn't yet, but when do you think we'll hear? This is the question on everybody's mind. When do you think we'll hear from the courts, from the two high courts, the Supreme Court, the Corte di Cassazione, and the Constitutional Court? What are your thoughts, predictions? We won't hold you to it.
I think that by the end of this month, we will receive, I suppose, some news from one or from both courts. As you said, the United Sections of the Supreme Court is issuing or have issued already decisions related to cases which were heard even after the 14th of April. So I think that manca poco. So there will be, there isn't, I mean, in a few weeks, we will have news about that. But I will be awaiting with a lot of confidence.
Well, Marco, I have to thank you once again for everything that you're doing for this community, for the Italian citizenship by descent community. Thank you for your generosity, your time, for supporting us all, for the tireless fight. Grazie davvero per il tuo tempo. È stato un piacere parlare con te. Grazie mille.
Tony, è stato un piacere per me. Un saluto a te e un saluto a tutti gli amici del tuo canale. E spero di fare presto un'altra intervista con delle buone notizie.
Sì. Okay, Marco, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day in beautiful Bologna. I'll come see you soon. Our next interview will be in person in your office, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Perfect, Tony. Un grande saluto a te e a tutti i tuoi amici, and just keep faith and confidence. We will fight for the rights of all the descendants of Italian immigrants.
Thank you, Marco. You know I'm with you. We'll keep fighting for our mutual clients, and I look forward to working with you on many cases to come. And I look forward to hearing how all of this is going to play out. And I sincerely hope that for everyone that we get the decisions that we're hoping for as soon as possible, and that all of this clears up and people can resume and move forward with their lives as Italian citizens, and maybe someday live here in Italy like I do now.
Why not? Why not, Tony? I look forward to welcoming you here at my office.
Thank you, Marco. Enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you soon.
Ciao, goodbye.
Ciao.